Panic at the Disco is simultaneously one of the most beloved and hated bands of the emo genre, and a lot of it has to do with frontman Brendon Urie. There's a subsection of fans that believe Brendon stole the band out from underneath the other members and perverted it into something it's not. They constantly criticize the switch to a more poppier sound, the more modern production style, lesser quality songwriting, and that collaboration with Taylor Swift. But if we're being fair, Panic saw a lot more success when it was under Brendon's control. But that doesn't always stop people from having an opinion. They love the Fever era and the Pretty Odd era, and anything after is dog shit. But if I'm being honest, I don't think Brendon is responsible for the divide amongst fans. If I'm being honest, I think a lot of it has to do with Ryan Ross.
No, but I got Cheese Whiz.
Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Trevor and I am eternally uncool. I make videos about music, music culture, and anything that interests me. But mostly music right now. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and watching the rest of this video. Ryan Ross has a reputation amongst Panic fans. He's seen as this kind of tortured genius who had his band stolen from him at the height of their fame. His songwriting is lauded as some of the best in emo and pop punk. There's a lot of mythologizing and lionization in discussions of Ryan Ross. And don't get me wrong, he's written some incredible music. And I can understand why fans put him up on a pedestal. But sometimes I don't understand. Ryan was the band's primary lyricist for 5 years. Yeah, those 5 years gave us 2 banger albums and countless classic songs, but Brendon Urie gave us a majority of some of Panic's biggest hits. Were they of the same artistic quality as Ryan's lyrics? Depends on who you ask. Ryan Ross has such a big legacy for someone who was only in the public eye for a short amount of time. He became this kind of emo cult hero, and then he just sort of disappeared. What happened to Ryan Ross? Where did he go? Is he still making music? Is he okay? Will he take Panic back and restore it to its former glory? Today, I'm gonna try my best to answer those questions. So grab a drink, grab a snack, grab your Cheese Whiz, and let's get into the video.
Why don't you tell us what you're doing right now? Stringing this guitar. Got one of these the other day.
You guys want to know something crazy? Ryan isn't even his real name. It's George. George Ryan Ross. The third. There's 2 more of these guys. Can you imagine if he decided to go by his first name? Do you think George Ross would have the same kind of career as Ryan Ross?
No.
George Ross would have been like a fucking senator or something. He was born in Las Vegas, Nevada on August 30th, 1986 to George Ryan Ross II and Danielle Ross. Ryan's parents would split when he was relatively young, partly due to his father's alcoholism. This alcoholism would find its way into some of Ryan's lyrics, most notably in the song Camisado.
Sit back and relax. Sit back and relax again.
Ryan and his father had a somewhat volatile relationship, and it didn't get any better when Ryan decided to pursue music. Ryan got his first guitar as a Christmas gift when he was 12 years old. His best friend Spencer Smith received drums. Together they would start jamming and playing around, and pretty soon they started a Blink-182 cover band. They were called Pet Salamander. Great name, guys. Despite being in a cover band, Ryan would start writing his own songs when he was just 14 years old. Ryan and Spencer would eventually expand Pet Salamander's lineup, teaming up with their friend Brent Wilson, a bass player, and Trevor Howell, a guitarist. They changed the band name to A Summer League, which I assume is a sports reference, and they started playing original music. This band wouldn't last long. It's a story similar to most teenage bands. You get together, you play on the weekend, you have fun, but eventually it all just fizzles out. Because you're kids, and you can't drive, or play in bars, or clubs. Trevor Howell would eventually ditch the band, because all Trevors suck. But Ryan, Spencer, and Brett continued on, adding Brett's friend Brendan Urie as a replacement guitar player. Ryan was originally the lead vocalist and guitarist of Pet Salamander and A Summer League. But during one particular practice, Brendan took over vocal duties, and everyone was like, whoa. So they decided that he should be the main vocalist and Ryan would provide backing vocals, as well as writing all the materials and compositions and whatnot. This new band would be called Panic at the Disco. Panic at the Disco. Eventually, this band would change Ryan's life forever. Ryan Ross eventually graduated high school and attended the University of Las Vegas. He lasted one semester before dropping out to pursue the band full-time. This did not sit well with his dad. They got into a lot of fights and I think he kicked Ryan out a few times, but that didn't matter. Ryan knew he had something with this band, and he wanted eyes and ears on it. Enter Pete Wentz.
Hey, what's up? I'm Pete from Fall Out Boy. Welcome to my crib.
Around 2004-2005, Fall Out Boy was getting a lot of attention. They were the pop punk and emo band. The bass player for Fall Out Boy, Pete Wentz, was a kind of tastemaker in the pop punk and emo scene. Being hugely internet savvy with things like MySpace and LiveJournal, this was where Ryan would make his move.
You've got mail.
Dude, this thing claims I have mail.
Ryan Ross and Brendan Urie put together a demo of a couple of Panic songs and sent it in a DM to Pete Wentz on his LiveJournal. Pete was intrigued and flew out to Las Vegas to see the band perform live. He sat in on one of their practices, and after hearing like 2 songs, he jumped up and he was like, I want to sign you. I want you on my label. You guys are the next big thing. I don't know if he did all that, but he did sign the band. He signed them to his Fueled by Ramen imprint, Decay Dance. Pete would rep the band pretty hard, wearing their shirts on stage and bringing them up in interviews. And at this point, most of the band was still in high school. Ryan was the only one who was in college. They were getting a lot of attention. By May, most of the band had graduated high school and they were heading to College Park, Maryland to record their debut album. Ryan was inspired by the monotonous nature of the Las Vegas he grew up in to create something different with his band, something unique. They wanted to be more experimental than their peers. Not a lot of bands looked or sounded like Panic at this time, and none of them had the same lyrical content. Ryan Ross's lyricism was so incredibly literate for someone so young. There are several songs on A Fever You Can't Sweat Out that directly reference works by Chuck Palahniuk and Douglas Copeland. Not a lot of bands were as literate as Panic at this time. It really set them apart.
That's good shit right there.
Ryan and the rest of the band were being thrust into the spotlight as the new, hot, young, fresh face of emo. Their album was certified platinum. They won Video of the Year at the 2006 MTV Music Video Awards for I Write Sins Not Tragedies. They were playing huge festivals like Reading and Leeds. They were getting absolutely gigantic. And it kind of felt like Ryan was the mastermind behind it all. He wanted the band to be unique and special and different and creative, and he definitely accomplished that. He was ambitious, and this ambition would lead to one of the most polarizing albums in all of rock music, as well as a big change in his life. I've talked about Panic's Lost Cabin album in another video, so I'm not going to get too deep into that one. I'll link that explanation in the description below. But the short version is Panic went up into the mountains of Nevada to work on their second album, a concept album called Cricket and Clover. They got high, wrote a few songs, recorded some of them, and then just abandoned the project for whatever reason. During this time, one of the founders of Crush Management, who was managing Panic at the time, gave Ryan Ross some Beatles albums. And this sparked a whole new creative avenue for Ryan Ross. He abandoned the emo poetry of their debut in lieu of something more retro and 60s inspired. What Ryan wanted to do with the band's second album, Pretty Odd, was create something that was a little bit more mature. He was tired of the emo sound of their debut. He was tired of the eyeliner and the costumes. He wanted to be like bands like The Hush Sound and Phantom Planet, bands that leaned more towards the indie side of things. Unfortunately though, not everyone in the band felt the same. You gotta remember, they were young men at the time. They were still trying to figure themselves out, and figuring out what kind of band they should be, and what direction it should go. And for Ryan, that direction was the Beatles. Ryan felt the dynamic of the band changing. The band was split clean down the middle, with Ryan and bassist John Walker, who replaced Brent Wilson, we don't gotta talk about it, wanting to do the more retro Beatles style. And Brendan and Spencer wanting to continue on with Panic, but in a more poppier direction. After some deliberation, it was decided that it would be best for Ryan and John to exit the band. And so they did. In 2009, Ryan Ross and John Walker left Panic at the Disco and started their own band, The Young Vanes. This band continued with the 60s rock and roll inspired sound of Pretty Odd. It was less emo and pop punk and more indie rock, accomplishing a more mature and cool sound. And they saw a little bit of success. Not as much as Panic, but they were successful for what they were. I have a whole video talking about the Young Vanes and their soul album, Take a Vacation. So if you want to know more, I'll link that video in the description also. But what happened with the Young Vanes was more creative differences. Creative differences split Panic, creative differences split the Young Vanes. I also think that Ryan's young man ego made him believe that he could be just as big as Panic without all the components that made Panic special. Ryan's writing, Brendan's voice, Spencer and John's playing, and just all the personalities meshing together, as well as a good label like Fueled by Ramen. The Young Vanes didn't have any of that, so they dissolved after just 1 year. After the Young Vanes called it quits, it just seemed like Ryan kind of disappeared. Maybe not disappeared, but he wasn't as present as he was during the Panic and Young Vanes years. His star just kind of faded.
Live all the life is but a dream. Fantastic foes agreed that we should feed our children to the sea.
With the two bands he founded now dissolved, Ryan decided it was best to just release music on his own. Around 2013, he did what a lot of singer-songwriters did, and he took to SoundCloud, releasing a 2-track demo EP. These 2 tracks were Off My Mind and Where I Belong. These 2 songs are interesting. You can still kind of hear those retro influences, but it's a lot more scaled back than on Pretty Odd or Take a Vacation. The music Ryan released on SoundCloud had a bit more of an indie vibe to it, with a little bit of pop rock and synth pop thrown in there. Yeah, they definitely fit into that 2010s synth pop sound, but there's just something about them that makes them stand out. I mean, I don't know. These songs are just really good. Pretty dang decent songs. Around this time, Ryan also featured on a song called Beach Bones by the band More Amour.
I said I can't believe my eyes, I won't drop it.
I don't know if he had anything to do with the songwriting process or if he was just brought in as a feature, but it feels so left field. Like such an odd decision to do this song with this band. It's this beachy neon pop punk jam. And Ryan is good on the song, don't get me wrong, but it just feels so odd. I think one of Ryan's most well-known post-Panic, post-Young Veins project is his collaborations with Z Berg. Ryan and Z Berg wrote a Christmas song together called The Bad List in 2018. It's a pretty good song. It's soft and dreamy, kind of reminds me of Lana Del Rey. The video is super interesting too, with Ryan walking on the beach and finding Z Berg's body washed up like a whale or something. And the video continues into what I can only describe as a much darker version of that Ryan Gosling movie Lars and the Real Girl. And Ryan's vocals are pretty good here. He's always done indie music really well. I feel like that's where he would have flourished post-Panic. I remember around this time Ryan Ross did an interview with Crank That Frank, where he had Z's limp, lifeless body just hanging all over him throughout the whole thing. It's a funny interview. It's kind of like Eric Andre. Z Berg really just commits to being dead. Around 2019, Ryan and Z would become part of a band called the Dead End Kids Club, along with Dan Keys and Nick Hinman. Okay, so the memory card on my camera was full, and for some reason, it kept telling me that the memory card was full even when I put the footage onto my laptop. So now I'm filming on my phone, so the video is gonna look kind of wonky in the second half. I'm sorry, this happens.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Dead End Kids Club mixed a lot of genres together. Dark folk, synth pop, alternative dance. This band just felt like a bunch of friends just playing together and just having fun. Ryan played with Keys, Berg played with Ryan, and Hinman played with Berg. They'd all switch instruments. It was very non-traditional, and it just seemed like a lot of fun. It just seemed like Ryan was having a good time. After this, though, Ryan would disappear again. Ryan Ross seems like a very private person. He doesn't really do a lot of social media these days. He's not really putting his life out there. From what I've heard, he's just living a life with his girlfriend and dogs. And I can understand this want for privacy and a normal life. He spent years being harassed by crazy Panic fans. I think he even had to deal with a stalker, like, pretending to be Brendan Urie via DMs.
That's fucked up.
So this kind of Howard Hughes-esque reclusiveness isn't surprising. He appeared on the My Friends podcast in 2019, where he talked about his struggles with alcoholism. But he's better now, and that's a great thing to hear. I'm not sure if he's making music or not. Being so private, you don't really get those studio updates. In 2019, he was talking about recording a solo album. So I don't know if he's still doing that, or if he abandoned the project, or what. It would be dope if he was. Imagine he's just recording this album in private, fine-tuning everything and making it perfect. And then he just releases this just massive comeback album that just blows everyone away. That would be amazing.
If you weren't famous, what do you think you would be doing now?
Trying to get famous.
What happened to Ryan Ross? He stepped out of the spotlight. He realized that he didn't want to be famous. What he wanted to do was make music that was unique and special and different, and he did just that. He crafted 2 all-time classic albums with Panic, and 1 cult classic album with the Young Veins. Whether or not he comes back with new material is up in the air. But even if he doesn't, I feel like his fans will still be here. Ryan Ross holds a place in the hearts of Panic fans. Some fans hold him a little higher than others, but that's a different video. He is definitely an important figure in the realm of 2000s emo and pop punk. His writing, his style, he was iconic, and I don't think his importance can be understated. Ryan Ross is just another in a long line of artists who stepped away from the spotlight in favor of a more normal, quiet life. But his musical legacy lives on.
Hey moon, please forget to fall down. Hey moon, don't you go down. Sugar cane and the easy morning, where the veins my one and lonely.
What do you think? Will Ryan Ross come back with a solo album? Will he reunite the classic Panic lineup? Or will he continue living a nice little private life? Let me know in the comments. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then I highly recommend smashing that like button and sharing this video with everyone you know. I'm a small independent content creator, and every like, every comment, every share, any interaction with this video at all does a lot to get it pushed out to other people who might be interested in what I'm doing and want to subscribe to the channel. With all that being said, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Trevor. Stay uncool. And that's the end of the video. Goodbye.